For far too long, the story of India was Tory, a lens of colonial domination. The nation was seen as a land to be ruled, its resources to be exploited, and its people to be managed rather than empowered. Generations lived under a system that denied them their own voice, their own power, their own destiny. But in every struggle, in every injustice, there were sparks of resistance, sparks of resilience, sparks of hope. Breaking the chains of colonial legacy is not merely a matter of history. It is a living, breathing journey that continues to this very day. When we talk about those chains, we are not only speaking of foreign rule, but of the psychological and economic weight it left behind. Colonialism was not just about armies and governors. It was about shaping the mindset of a people to doubt their own strength, to look outward for approval, to believe that progress could only come from others. That is the heaviest chain of all, the chain of believing that one's own culture, one's own innovation, one's own potential is somehow lesser. And that is precisely why breaking these chains requires more than political independence. It demands a transformation of thought, a reclamation of pride, and a renewal of confidence in who we are and what we can achieve. India's journey from subjugation to sovereignty is remarkable, not just because the chains were broken once, but because each generation has had to keep breaking them in new forms. The remnants of those systems lingered. In economic dependence, in inherited institutions, in the way the world viewed India. Yet time and again, India has proven that will not be defined by the past. It has risen through innovation, through democracy, through the power of its people. It has taken the tools once meant to control it and repurposed them to serve its own vision of progress. The act of breaking these chains is also an act of healing. It means looking back at centuries of exploitation and saying we will not let this define our future. It means honoring the struggles of those who fought for independence, not by merely remembering their sacrifices, but by living out the values they dreamed of. It means carrying forward their courage into new battles. Battles against inequality, poverty, corruption, and dependency. The strength of India lies not only in its ability to endure suffering, but in its capacity to rise beyond it, to imagine new possibilities, to chart a course that no empire could predict it. This is not just about one nation's freedom. It is about sending a message to the world that no matter how deep the chains may be, the human spirit has the power to break them. When India stands tall, it does so not only for itself, but for every nation that has ever struggled under oppression, every people who have been told their future would be decided by someone else. In breaking the chains of colonial legacy, India reminds the world that dignity cannot be suppressed, that sovereignty cannot be stolen, and that destiny belongs to those with the courage to claim it. For far too long, the story of India was told through the lens of colonial domination. The nation was seen as a land to be ruled, its resources to be exploited, and its people to be managed rather than empowered. Generations lived under a system that denied them their own voice, their own power, their own destiny. But in every struggle, in every injustice, there were sparks of resistance, sparks of resilience, sparks of hope. Breaking the chains of colonial legacy is not merely a matter of history. It is a living, breathing journey that continues to this very day. When we talk about those chains, we are not only speaking of foreign rule, but of the psychological and economic weight it left behind. Colonialism was not just about armies and governors. It was about shaping the mindset of a people to doubt their own strength, to look outward for approval, to believe that progress could only come from others. That is the heaviest chain of all, the chain of believing that one's own culture, one's own innovation, one's own potential is somehow lesser. And that is precisely why breaking these chains requires more than political independence. It demands a transformation of thought, a reclamation of pride, and a renewal of confidence in who we are and what we can achieve. India's journey from subjugation to sovereignty is remarkable not just because the chains were broken once, but because each generation has had to keep breaking them in new forms. The remnants of those systems lingered. In economic dependence, in inherited institutions, in the way the world viewed India, yet time and again India has proven that will not be defined by the past. It has risen through innovation, through democracy, through the power of its people. It has taken the tools once meant to control it and repurposed them to serve its own vision of progress. The act of breaking these chains is also an act of healing. It means looking back at centuries of exploitation and saying we will not let this define our future. It means honoring the struggles of those who fought for independence, not by merely remembering their sacrifices, but by living out the values they dreamed of. It means carrying forward their courage into new battles, battles against inequality, poverty, corruption, and dependency. The strength of India lies not only in its ability to endure suffering, but in its capacity to rise beyond it, to imagine new possibilities, to chart a course that no empire could have predicted. This is not just about one nation's freedom. It is about sending a message to the world that no matter how deep the chains may be, the human spirit has the power to break them. When India stands tall, it does so not only for itself, but for every nation that has ever struggled under oppression, every people who have been told their future would be decided by someone else. In breaking the chains of colonial legacy, India reminds the world that dignity cannot be suppressed, that sovereignty cannot be stolen, and that destiny belongs to those with the courage to claim it. For too long, the foundation of the economy was shaped by forces outside of India's control. Under colonial rule, the nation was made dependent, its resources extracted, its industries stifled, its people forced into systems that benefited others while leaving India vulnerable. Even after independence, the shadow of that dependency lingered. Too often, the country was told it must look outward for progress, that it could not thrive without relying on imports, without borrowing technologies, without following models that were not its own. But self-reliance is not about isolation. It is about standing strong on one's own feet, about building the capacity to thrive through the strength of one's people, one's innovation, and one's vision for the future. When we speak of building self-reliance in the economy, we are speaking about creating a system that is resilient to shocks, sustainable in growth, and fair in opportunity. It means no longer being dependent on others to feed the hungry, to clothe the poor, to power the industries of tomorrow. It means ensuring that the wealth of this nation serves the people of this nation, that every farmer, every worker, every entrepreneur, and every student has the tools to contribute to progress. An economy rooted in self-reliance is not built on the quick gains of dependency, but on the long-term strength of innovation and hard work. Innovation is the heart of this transformation. For centuries, India has been a land of ideas, whether in mathematics, medicine, or philosophy. That spirit of creativity has never left. It simply needed the space to flourish. Today, as young minds build new technologies, as startups rise from small towns, as scientists push the boundaries of discovery, the nation proves innovation is not imported, it is cultivated. Building self-reliance means investing in that talent, creating environments where ideas can thrive, and ensuring that progress is not concentrated in a few hands, but shared across the society. Self-reliance also demands courage. The courage to break away from systems of dependence, the courage to face the challenges of global competition, and the courage to believe that local solutions can meet global standards. It is not easy to step away from the familiar path of reliance. But every step taken toward independence of thought, of industry, of technology, is a step toward dignity. It is a reminder that true progress is not measured by what is borrowed, but by what is built from within. This vision is not just about factories and industries. It is about people. It is about empowering communities to create, to innovate, to sustain themselves without waiting for handouts or external saviors. It is about teaching a child in a rural village that their ideas are just as powerful as those born in global centers of wealth. It is about giving farmers access to technology that raises productivity, giving workers the skills that match a changing economy, and giving dreamers the chance to build companies that compete not only in India, but across the world. The journey to self-reliance is also the journey to dignity. A nation that depends on others for its basic needs can never fully claim its freedom. But a nation that feeds itself, that fuels itself, that innovates for itself, sends a message far beyond its borders. It declares that strength is not given, it is earned, that progress is not imported, it is created, that destiny is not dictated, it is shaped by the hands of its own people. For centuries, global partnerships were not partnerships at all, but hierarchies. Nations like India were not invited to the tables, they were positioned as subordinates, as suppliers of resources, as markets to be exploited. Decisions that shaped the destiny of millions were made in distant capitals, often without the voice or consent of those most affected. But the world is changing, and India's rise is proof that partnerships of the future must not be based on dominance, but on equality, respect, and mutual benefit. Redefining global partnerships on equal terms is not simply a matter of diplomacy, it is a matter of justice, of fairness, and of rewriting the rules of engagement in a world that belongs to all of us. When India engages with the world today, it does so not as a follower, but as a leader. It It does not come to the table asking for favors, but offering ideas, solutions, and opportunities. Equal partnership means recognizing that no simple nation holds all the answers, that wisdom and progress can emerge from every corner of the globe. It means building relationships not through coercion or dependency, but through dialogue, through cooperation, through the shared pursuit of peace and prosperity. True equality in global partnerships is reflected in the ability to say yes and the freedom to say no. For too long, nations in the developing world were pressured into arrangements that benefited others more than themselves. Trade deals that drained resources, alliances that compromised sovereignty, agreements that left them weaker rather than stronger. To redefine partnerships is to stand firm in the conviction that cooperation must uplift both sides, that no nation should be asked to sacrifice its dignity for the sake of participation in the global system. This redefinition is not about turning away from the world, but about shaping a new world together. India's partnerships must be built on principles of shared growth, where technology, knowledge, and resources are exchanged in ways that benefit all people, not just a privileged few. In matters of climate change, health, and security, no single nation can succeed alone. But equal terms mean that solutions cannot be dictated by the powerful. They must be created collectively, with the voices of every nation heard and valued. For India, this vision carries special weight. The nation knows what it means to be silenced, to be overlooked, to have its contributions minimized. That is why its rise is not only about securing a stronger place for itself, but about reshaping the very fabric of global engagement. When India insists on equal terms, it does so not only for its own people, but for every nation that has ever been told it is too small, too weak, or too dependent to matter. In standing tall, India extends its hand to others, offering a partnership rooted not in control, but in solidarity. This is how trust is built, through respect, through listening, through honoring the dignity of all nations. Equal partnerships are not transactional, they are transformational. They create a world where progress is shared, where power is balanced, where cooperation is genuine. By redefining what it means to partner, India is helping to create a global order that reflects the values of fairness, inclusivity, and justice. And in doing so, it proves that the days of dominance are over and the era of equality has begun. The future of any nation is written in the hands of its youth. They are not only the inheritors of history, they are the makers of tomorrow. In a country like India, where the majority of the population is young, this truth carries extraordinary power. To empower the youth is to invest in progress, to unleash creativity, to open the doors of possibility for a new generation that refuses to be limited by the chains of the past. The dreams they carry are not small, and the energy they bring cannot be contained. They are the engine of transformation, the force that will drive India into its rightful place on the world stage. Empowerment begins with belief. The belief that young people are not simply future leaders, but leaders today. Too often societies have silenced youthful voices, dismissing their ideas as naive or unrealistic. Yet history has shown, time and again, that change often begins with the young, that revolutions of thought and spirit are led by those bold enough to imagine a world different from the one they inherited. To empower the youth is to listen to them, to respect their vision, and to give them the tools they need to turn that vision into reality. Education lies at the heart of this empowerment. A strong, inclusive, and innovative education system equips young people not only with skills for employment, but with the courage to question, to innovate, to lead. An empowered student is one who is not bound to rote memorization, but encouraged to think critically, to explore creativity, to see challenges as opportunities. Every classroom, every university, every training program is a seedbed for progress when it invests in unlocking the potential of the youth. But empowerment goes beyond education. It requires opportunities to work, to create, to build. The youth must not be trapped in cycles of unemployment or underemployment. They must be given platforms where their talents can flourish. Whether through entrepreneurship, technology, or the arts, young people must be given the chance to shape the economy and culture of tomorrow. A nation that fails to provide these avenues risks squandering its greatest resource. A nation that invests in them, however, will reap the rewards of innovation, resilience, and growth. Empowering the youth also means trust in them with responsibility. Real progress comes when young people are included in decision-making, when their perspectives are heard in politics, business, science, and community life. When they see their voices matter, they are not only inspired to lead, they are inspired to serve. They become not just beneficiaries in change, but active participants in shaping it. A young person trusted with responsibility today will grow into a citizen who takes responsibility tomorrow for their family, their community, and their nation. This empowerment must also be grounded in values. The energy of youth can be a powerful force for good, but it must be guided by principles of justice, compassion, and unity. It is not enough to power young people with tools. They must also be empowered with a vision of purpose, a sense of duty not just to themselves, but to society as a whole. When young people carry both skill and integrity, both innovation and empathy, they become the kind of leaders who do not simply chase success, but create a better future for everyone. India's youth are not waiting to be told what to do. They are ready. They are eager. They are already shaping change in technology, in culture, in movements for justice and equality. By empowering them fully, the nation sends a clear message. The future is not something distant and uncertain. It is alive right now in the courage, imagination, and determination of its young people. For too long, the global order has been shaped by a narrow group of powerful nations, while voices from the developing world were either minimized or ignored. Decisions of war and peace, of trade and climate, of justice and security were made without the full participation of those most affected. But as India rises, it carries with it not only the weight of its own people, but the aspirations of countless others who seek fairness in a world too often dominated by inequality. India's rise is not just about power, it is about principle. It is about becoming a voice that insists on justice, on balance, on a future where no nation is silenced and no people are left behind. India's own history gives it a unique authority to speak on these issues. Having endured centuries of colonial exploitation, the nation understands the pain of injustice, the bitterness of inequality, and the struggle for dignity. It has known what it means to be denied agency, and therefore when India speaks of justice, it speaks with authenticity. It is not a voice of dominance, but a voice of experience, of resilience, of moral clarity. This is what gives India the credibility to challenge unfair systems, to question the arrogance of the powerful, and to call for a balance that reflects the true diversity of our world. Justice on the global stage means more than courts and treaties. It means ensuring that opportunities and responsibilities are shared equitably. It means that climate agreements do not punish the poor for problems created by the rich. It means that trade is not tilted in favor of the few, but serves the many. It means that security is not defined only by military strength, but by the dignity of human lives. India's rise gives it the platform to articulate these truths, to demand that global systems respect fairness, and to insist that growth must not come at the expense of justice. Balance is equally important. For decades, the world has swayed between extremes of dominance and dependency, with smaller nations often forced to choose sides. India, however, stands as a bridge, a nation capable of engaging with all without being beholden to any. Its rise introduces a voice that seeks balance between East and West, North and South, tradition and modernity, development and sustainability. In doing so, it demonstrates that global leadership need not be about imposing power, but about creating equilibrium. This balance does not weaken the world, it strengthens it by ensuring that every nation, large or small, has a place and a purpose. India's role as a voice for justice and balance is also deeply rooted in its values. From the principles of nonviolence taught by Mahatma Gandhi to its commitment to democracy amid diversity, India has shown that power and morality need not be opposites. Its rise proves that leadership is not only about military or economic strength, but about moral authority, about the ability to inspire trust, about the capacity to unify rather than divide. This is the kind of leadership the world desperately needs. A leadership that values justice as much as strength, that seeks balance as much as progress. When India raises its voice on the global stage, it speaks not only for itself, but for those who too often go unheard. It represents the farmer in Africa seeking fairness in trade, the island nation in the Pacific fighting for survival against climate change, the struggling communities in Asia and Latin America demanding dignity. By standing for justice and balance, India becomes more than a rising power. It becomes a rising hope, a hope the world can be more inclusive, more equitable, and more just.